A few teachers had now arrived, noticing the situation. One approached the officer carefully. "Officer, let's not escalate this further. She's a minor. We can handle this calmly here, without involving more people or creating a scene." The teacher's voice carried authority and care, and the officer paused, considering her words. Despite this, the officer remained cautious. He wasn't used to hesitation, and the combination of a minor, a growing crowd, and the intervention of teachers was new to him. He took a step back and tried to regain control. "I need to follow procedures. Please come with me for a short discussion." His hand rested lightly on his belt, a subtle reminder of authority. The girl shook her head, frustration building with a touch of fear. "Please, I've done nothing wrong. I will answer all your questions right here. I don't understand why you're insisting I go somewhere else." Around them, the students' whispers had grown louder, a mix of curiosity and concern. Phones continued to record, capturing every second of the confrontation. Some students leaned toward the girl, speaking softly to reassure her, while others tried to reason with the officer. "There's no need for this to get worse," one student said quietly, almost pleading. "She's just a student. She's not dangerous. Please don't take her anywhere." Their voices, though small individually, added to the collective tension of the moment. The officer, now acutely aware of the crowd, hesitated. He glanced around, noticing the mix of fear, concern, and defiance on the faces of the students. Every camera phone pointed at him reminded him that his actions were being observed, judged, and could be scrutinized later. He felt the pressure, a strange feeling of being watched that wasn't about law enforcement, but about social attention and public perception. The girl took a deep breath and tried to speak with clarity and calmness, hoping to appeal to reason. "Please just listen to me for a moment. You can ask anything here. I will answer truthfully, but going anywhere is not necessary. Let's clear this up calmly." Her voice, steady despite the fear in her chest, seemed to make a small impact. The officer's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Then a new voice joined in, one that added authority and presence. Another teacher approached, a little older and with a reputation for handling tense situations. "Officer, let's not escalate this in front of everyone. The student has expressed her willingness to cooperate. We can all talk and clarify what happened without moving her from here." His tone was firm but not confrontational, and it seemed to resonate with the officer, who realized that forcing the girl away in front of so many witnesses could lead to complications. The girl's classmates now began murmuring to each other, their concern visible in their anxious expressions. A few of them moved closer to the girl, forming a protective semicircle, though they stayed respectful, not crossing any lines. The situation was delicate, and everyone sensed that a wrong move could escalate it further. The officer stood still, clearly weighing his options. He wanted to maintain control, but also recognized the delicate balance of the situation. He realized that this was no longer just a simple matter of procedure. There were social dynamics at play, and his actions were being observed in a way that could have consequences beyond the immediate incident. The girl, meanwhile, remained composed. She focused on her breathing, tried to stay calm, and maintained eye contact with the officer. Her mind raced, considering every possible outcome. She knew she had done nothing wrong, but she also understood that appearances could matter as much as facts in moments like these. The courtyard seemed to hold its breath. Every student, every teacher, and even the officer seemed suspended in the tension of the moment. The whispers continued, though quieter now, as everyone waited for the next move. Some students exchanged glances, sensing that something important was about to happen, something that could change the course of the situation entirely. Just then, the faint sound of a car engine echoed from the street outside the school. The girl turned her head slightly, her instincts alert. The officer noticed the movement and looked in the same direction, his stance tightening as he prepared for anything. The sound grew louder, and a sleek black car approached the school entrance. The students whispered among themselves, curious and apprehensive. The girl's heart pounded, a mix of fear and anticipation. She had no idea who was arriving, but something told her that this could change everything. The officer, however, remained unaware of the significance of the approaching vehicle, focused on the girl and the tense situation he was trying to manage. The car came to a smooth stop at the entrance, and a man stepped out. He moved with calm authority, carrying himself in a way that immediately commanded attention. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing that this was someone important, though he had no idea how significant. The girl's classmates tensed, and a few instinctively moved closer to her. The teacher who had intervened stepped forward, looking at the approaching man with recognition and respect. The atmosphere shifted subtly, an unspoken acknowledgement that the dynamics were about to change. The man approached, his expression composed, yet there was a quiet intensity in his eyes. He looked at the girl and then at the officer, his presence alone adding a weight to the situation. The officer, still unaware of who this person was, straightened up, a mix of caution and curiosity crossing his face. The girl felt a surge of relief. She didn't fully understand yet, but she knew that this was someone who could help. Her fear was still there, but it was tempered by hope. She took a deep breath, standing a little taller, and waited to see what would happen next. The students around them whispered quietly, sensing the tension and the significance of the moment. Phones were still recording, capturing the unfolding scene. The courtyard, once a place of ordinary routine, had become the stage for an extraordinary encounter, with the tension building and the next moment promising to change everything for everyone involved. The officer finally spoke, his voice steady but cautious. "Can I help you?" he asked the approaching man, unaware of the man's identity and the influence he carried. The man's eyes met the officer's, calm but firm. "I am here for my daughter," he said simply. The words were plain, but they carried authority and a quiet weight. The officer's posture stiffened, sensing that this was no ordinary situation. The girl's heart skipped a beat, realizing that her father's presence had the power to resolve the situation. The tension in the courtyard hung thick, but the arrival of the man had shifted the balance. The students watched in awe, their whispers growing softer as they tried to understand what was happening. The girl felt a mix of relief and nervousness, knowing that the next moments would determine how the situation would unfold. The man's calm and authoritative demeanor added gravity to the moment. The officer, now aware of the importance of the individual before him, hesitated. The dynamics had changed. What had started as a tense confrontation over a minor misunderstanding was now evolving into something much more complex, with social, professional, and personal dimensions intertwining in the courtyard of an ordinary high school. And in that moment, everyone knew that the story was far from over. The girl, the officer, the students, and the teachers were all caught in a web of tension, anticipation, and uncertainty, waiting to see how the encounter would resolve itself and what lessons might be learned in the process. The man walked calmly toward the officer, his steps measured and confident. There was something in his posture, a quiet authority that immediately drew attention. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze steady, and looked down at the girl, who was now standing still, her backpack hanging loosely on her shoulder. Relief washed over her face, but she kept her voice quiet, waiting to see how this would unfold. "This is my daughter," the man said plainly, his tone calm yet commanding. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding, and I'd like to resolve it here and now." The officer's eyes narrowed slightly as he processed the words, sensing the weight behind them even if he didn't yet fully understand the connection. The girl's classmates whispered among themselves, their curiosity turning into awe. Phones were still recording, capturing the tension and the unexpected arrival of someone who clearly carried authority. The courtyard, which had moments ago been filled with confusion and fear, now seemed to hold a quiet anticipation. Everyone could feel that something significant was about to happen. The officer took a cautious step back, his hands still near his belt, but his posture slightly more relaxed. He realized that this was no ordinary parent. There was a presence about the man, a calm but unmistakable control over the situation. The teacher who had been standing nearby stepped forward slightly, nodding in recognition toward the man, and whispered something to the officer. The girl, though still a little frightened, felt her shoulders relax. She had always known her father was an important figure, but she had not anticipated that his presence would immediately change the course of events so dramatically. She looked at him with gratitude, a small smile forming despite the tension that still lingered. The officer cleared his throat, attempting to regain some measure of authority, though he now understood that this encounter was no longer as straightforward as he had believed. "Sir, I didn't realize," he began, but the man's calm gaze stopped him. "I am aware that procedures must be followed," the man said smoothly. "But we should also consider context. My daughter has been nothing but cooperative, and any misunderstanding can be clarified here. There is no need for escalation. His words were clear, measured, and delivered in a way that left no room for argument. The officer paused, recognizing the implicit power in the statement. The girls' classmates exchanged impressed looks. They whispered quietly, realizing that the situation had shifted entirely. The tension in the air was still present, but it was now tempered with the sense that everything would be resolved without further confrontation. The officer seemed to understand that pressing the issue any further could lead to consequences far beyond the school courtyard. The teacher stepped closer to the officer. "You see, officer," he said gently, "sometimes the context changes the way we must act. There is no harm in taking a moment to clarify things calmly." The officer nodded slowly, his previous certainty replaced with careful consideration. The man looked at his daughter, then back at the officer. "Please take a moment to review the situation and speak with the relevant parties. You'll find that there is no need for any action beyond understanding what occurred." His voice carried a quiet authority, calm yet firm enough that everyone could feel the weight behind it. The officer swallowed, clearly aware that the balance of power had shifted. He took a step back, lowering his hand slightly, though he maintained a professional stance. "I understand, sir," he said, choosing his words carefully. "Perhaps we should clarify the situation before proceeding further." The girl's relief was palpable, though she stayed composed, knowing that patience was important in moments like this. She had learned to observe her father in situations of authority, and she followed his lead. She kept her voice soft but steady, adding, "I want to cooperate and explain everything. I just hope we can do it here without unnecessary conflict." The man nodded approvingly at her, a small but encouraging gesture. "That is exactly the right approach," he said. His eyes then returned to the officer. "There is no reason to escalate a situation unnecessarily, especially with a minor involved. I trust that we can all proceed reasonably." The officer exhaled slowly, clearly weighing the man's presence and words. The crowd of students and teachers remained silent, sensing the subtle shift in authority and understanding the importance of restraint. Even the whispers of speculation had quieted, replaced by focused observation. The moment hung in the air, heavy with anticipation yet calming as the tension slowly gave way to controlled dialogue. The girls' classmates started to relax, some of them nudging each other and whispering about how her father's appearance had changed everything. They had been on edge, worried for her safety and the outcome, but now they saw that the situation was under control, albeit in an unusual way. Phones were still recording, capturing a lesson in authority, presence, and respect that none of them would forget soon. The teacher who had intervened earlier spoke again, addressing both the officer and the man. "I think we can all agree that a calm conversation will resolve this quickly. Let's take a moment to understand what occurred, speak with those involved, and ensure no further misunderstandings." His tone was reassuring, bridging the gap between authority and fairness, and it seemed to guide the moment toward resolution. The officer nodded, finally lowering his stance further, signaling his willingness to cooperate. He glanced at the girl, then back at the man. "Very well, sir. Let's clarify what happened." The man gave a slight nod, a subtle acknowledgement of the officer's cooperation. He turned slightly to his daughter and spoke in a quiet voice that only she could hear. "Stay calm, explain clearly, and be honest. This will all be resolved quickly. You've done nothing wrong." His words, both comforting and instructive, gave her the confidence she needed to remain composed. The girl nodded, inhaling deeply and finding a sense of strength in her father's calm presence. She took a small step forward, prepared to clarify the misunderstanding to the officer and teachers, her voice steady as she began explaining the events that had led to the confrontation. She described the earlier incident in class, the miscommunication with a teacher and a classmate, and how it had been resolved within the school. Her words were measured, clear, and honest, leaving little room for doubt or misunderstanding. The officer listened carefully, his previous assumptions slowly giving way to the facts she presented. The students observed quietly, their curiosity now tempered by relief and admiration for the girl's poise. They could see the officer processing the information, nodding occasionally, and realizing that the situation was indeed a minor misunderstanding that could have been resolved without confrontation. The teacher added details where necessary, confirming the girl's explanation and emphasizing that there had been no malicious intent or harmful behavior. The officer's stance relaxed further, and a sense of resolution began to settle over the courtyard. The man, satisfied with the explanation, gave a small nod to the officer. "I trust you see now that there is no reason for further action. I appreciate your diligence, but it is equally important to recognize context." His calm authority had guided the entire situation toward resolution, demonstrating both influence and fairness. The officer straightened his uniform, offering a professional nod in acknowledgement. "Understood, sir. Thank you for clarifying. I apologize for any misunderstanding." His words were sincere, reflecting both respect and the recognition that his initial approach had been too hasty given the circumstances. The girl exhaled quietly, relief washing over her. She smiled faintly at her father, grateful for his presence and guidance. Her classmates whispered softly among themselves, their admiration for the way she handled the situation evident in their eyes. Phones continued to record, capturing a powerful moment of calm, authority, and human dignity in the midst of potential conflict. The teacher stepped back, allowing the girl and her father to take the lead. The officer nodded once more before moving away, giving them space to leave the courtyard. The students gradually dispersed, their whispers turning into conversations about the lessons they had just witnessed. Patience, courage, authority, and the power of calm. Respectful communication. The girl, walking alongside her father, felt a mixture of relief and reflection. The tension of the afternoon had been intense, but she had witnessed firsthand the importance of composure, honesty, and the guidance of someone experienced in handling complex situations. She knew she would carry this lesson with her for a long time. In the courtyard, what had started as a routine school day had transformed into a moment that everyone present would remember. The dynamics of authority, influence, and fairness had been displayed clearly, leaving both the students and the officer with a powerful understanding of the importance of context, patience, and careful judgment. And for the girl, it was a day that reminded her that even ordinary afternoons could hold extraordinary lessons. After the tension in the courtyard began to fade, the girl and her father walked slowly toward the school gate. Her backpack felt lighter now, not because of anything physical, but because the weight of fear and anxiety that had burdened her for the past hour was lifting. She felt her father's calm presence beside her, and that alone gave her a sense of safety she hadn't realized she needed so much. Students and teachers slowly returned to their routines, though many couldn't resist whispering about what had just happened. Phones were still in hands, replaying and sharing the moment, capturing a scene that was now a lesson in authority, composure, and how misunderstandings could escalate if not handled carefully. The girl's classmates lingered for a few moments, stealing glances and whispering quietly to each other, sharing their relief and admiration for the way she had remained composed under pressure. The officer remained in the courtyard for a few more minutes, carefully reflecting on the events. He straightened his uniform, adjusting his hat and taking slow, measured breaths. The encounter had been unusual, and it left him thinking about the importance of context, communication, and the need to balance authority with discretion. It was a moment he knew he wouldn't forget, one that would influence how he approached similar situations in the future. The girl's father walked with a calm, deliberate pace, occasionally speaking softly to her. "You handled yourself very well," he said quietly. "I know it was frightening, but you stayed composed and explained clearly. That's exactly what you needed to do." The girl listened, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. She knew she had acted as she should, and her father's acknowledgement made her feel validated. "Thank you, Dad," she replied, her voice still soft but steady. "I was scared, but I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to make it worse." She looked around at the school courtyard, now returning to its usual rhythm, with students moving about, teachers supervising, and the occasional distant laugh or shout reminding everyone that life went on. Her father nodded. "Fear is normal, but how you manage it makes all the difference. Today you learned a lesson not only about authority but also about yourself. You have the ability to stay strong even when situations are difficult." They paused at the school gate, where the crowd of students and a few lingering teachers had started to disperse. Some students waved quietly to the girl, their expressions a mix of concern, admiration, and curiosity. She waved back, grateful for their support and presence during the tense moments. "I think it's important to remember," her father continued, "that not every situation will involve someone as understanding as the officer today. You handled it well, but always be aware and cautious. Not every misunderstanding will be resolved so quickly or easily." His voice carried a gentle seriousness that reminded her of the importance of being mindful in the world. The girl nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She understood that while today's incident had ended without harm, there were lessons about awareness, responsibility, and the unpredictable nature of interactions with authority figures. She resolved to carry this awareness with her, not as fear but as wisdom. Meanwhile, the officer walked toward the school exit as well, taking a final glance at the courtyard. He reflected on the tension, the students' reactions, and the way the girl had maintained her composure. He realized that understanding context, maintaining patience, and listening carefully were as important as enforcing rules. It was a lesson he would not soon forget. The girl and her father reached the car waiting outside. She felt a sense of comfort and security as they climbed in, the familiar interior of the vehicle contrasting sharply with the intensity of the past hour. Her father started the car, and they drove slowly through the streets near the school, giving the girl time to process everything. "It's strange," she said quietly, glancing out the window at the passing scenery. "I never thought a simple misunderstanding could become something so complicated." She sighed, a mixture of relief and lingering tension leaving her chest. "But I'm glad it's over." Her father nodded. "Misunderstandings can escalate quickly if not handled carefully. Today, you learned the importance of staying calm, explaining yourself clearly, and trusting those who are there to help. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting responsibly even when you're afraid." His words were soft but firm, carrying the kind of wisdom that comes from experience. As they drove, the girl reflected on her classmates, the teachers, and the officer. She thought about how every individual had a role in how events unfolded, and how collective understanding and patience could resolve conflicts more effectively than force or haste. She felt grateful for the support she had received and understood the responsibility she had in her own actions. Back at home, she sat quietly in her room for a few moments, reflecting on the events. The fear had faded, replaced by a mixture of relief and contemplation. She realized that the incident had been more than just a confrontation. It had been a lesson in authority, respect, and self-awareness. She resolved to carry these lessons with her, using them to guide her future actions. Her father joined her after a short while, sitting down beside her. "How are you feeling now?" he asked gently. She smiled faintly, feeling a sense of calm settle over her. "I feel better," she said. "I understand a lot more now. I understand that I have to be careful, but also that staying calm and honest can make a difference." Her father nodded, pleased with her reflection. "Exactly. Life will present challenges, and not all of them will be as straightforward as this one. But the way you respond to them defines your character. You did well today." She listened, feeling the warmth and reassurance of his presence. She understood that the incident, though stressful, had strengthened her. It had taught her resilience, the importance of clear communication, and the value of remaining composed even when situations seem beyond control. Meanwhile, in the school community, the incident was already becoming a story shared among students and teachers. Discussions about authority, respect, and the role of adults in handling delicate situations were taking place in classrooms, staff rooms, and among friends. The story of the high school girl and the officer became a quiet lesson in the importance of patience, fairness, and careful judgment. The girl's classmates reflected on what they had witnessed. Some talked about the courage she had shown, while others discussed how context and understanding could prevent conflicts from escalating. Phones had captured moments that would serve as reminders of the events, but the lessons went beyond what any recording could show. The students realized that human behavior, understanding, and responsibility played a far greater role than they had sometimes considered. As evening approached, the girl sat quietly, thinking about the officer, her classmates, and the teachers who had helped de-escalate the situation. She understood that while the event had been frightening, it had also been educational. It had shown her the importance of remaining calm, the value of listening, and how authority could be balanced with fairness and understanding. Her father stood by the window, looking out as the sun set. He thought about the day, the challenges his daughter had faced, and the lessons that had been learned, not only by her but by everyone who had witnessed the incident. It was a reminder that every action, every choice had consequences, and that composure, honesty, and understanding were essential in navigating life's complexities. The girl turned to him, a soft smile on her face. "Thank you for being there, Dad," she said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." He smiled back, his eyes warm. "You would have done fine on your own, but I'm glad I could help. Remember what you learned today. Keep it with you, and it will guide you through many more situations in life." The evening grew quieter, and the house settled into a calm rhythm. The girl felt a sense of peace, knowing that the frightening moments of the day had passed and that she had grown stronger because of them. The incident was over, but the lessons remained vivid in her mind. Courage under pressure, patience, clear communication, and the value of understanding context. Outside, the world continued on, oblivious to the small but significant drama that had unfolded at the high school. Inside, the girl and her father shared a quiet moment of reflection, understanding that the events of the day had shaped them both in subtle but meaningful ways. It had been a day that tested courage, patience, and composure, and the lessons learned would remain with them long after the fear had faded. The next morning, the girl woke up with a sense of calm she hadn't felt the day before. The events at the school were still fresh in her mind, but the fear had been replaced by reflection. She remembered how tense everything had been, how the officer had approached her, and how her father's presence had shifted the situation. She realized that it wasn't just about the fear. It was about the lessons she had learned from the experience. At breakfast, her father sat across from her, sipping his tea quietly. He noticed the thoughtful expression on her face. "How are you feeling today?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly, realizing that the calm she felt now was a result of understanding and reflection. "I feel better," she said. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday. I understand now how important it is to stay calm, even when things seem unfair. I also understand that being honest and clear can prevent misunderstandings from getting worse." Her father nodded, pleased with her insight. "Exactly," he said. "Life often puts us in situations we don't expect. Fear and frustration are natural, but how we respond is what truly matters. Yesterday you responded with courage and clarity, and that made all the difference." His words reminded her that lessons from life often came in unexpected ways. After breakfast, she got ready for school, still reflecting on the incident. As she walked to her classroom, she noticed a few classmates whispering and glancing at her. Some smiled quietly, a mix of admiration and curiosity, while others seemed thoughtful. She realized that they had all witnessed something remarkable, and that the story of yesterday's events would be discussed for days to come. During the morning classes, her mind occasionally wandered back to the courtyard. She thought about the officer, the teacher, and especially her father. She realized how each person's actions had affected the outcome. The officer had been firm but willing to reconsider when context was clarified. The teachers had intervened carefully, ensuring the situation didn't escalate, and her father's calm authority had guided the resolution. At lunch, she sat with a group of friends who had been present in the courtyard. They spoke quietly, sharing their impressions and reflections. "I can't believe what happened yesterday," one said. "It was tense, but you handled it so well. I was scared for you." The girl nodded, feeling grateful for their concern. "I was scared too, but I realized that staying calm and explaining everything clearly was the best way to handle it." The conversation turned to lessons about authority and respect. Her friends discussed how misunderstandings could escalate if people acted impulsively, and how patience and understanding could prevent conflict. The girl shared her thoughts on courage and honesty, emphasizing that even in difficult situations, clear communication and composure could make a difference. Later that afternoon, she met with the principal to clarify the incident fully. They discussed the events calmly and rationally, ensuring that the record reflected the truth. The principal expressed appreciation for her honesty and composure, acknowledging that her behavior had helped resolve the situation without unnecessary conflict. This meeting reinforced her understanding of responsibility and the importance of handling challenges thoughtfully. As the school day ended, she walked home reflecting on how ordinary life could sometimes present extraordinary lessons. She thought about the officer and how his willingness to listen and reconsider had helped prevent escalation. She realized that understanding and empathy were important in any role, whether in authority or otherwise. Arriving home, she found her father in the study, reviewing documents as usual. She approached him, eager to discuss the day and her reflections. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about yesterday and what it taught me," she began. "I understand that staying calm and honest is crucial, and that context really matters in every situation." Her father looked up, smiling. "I'm glad you understand that. Life will always present challenges, but how you respond is what shapes your character. You've learned an important lesson about courage, patience, and responsibility." His calm voice carried reassurance and wisdom, making her feel secure and understood. The girl spent the evening reflecting further, writing down her thoughts in a notebook. She wrote about fear, courage, responsibility, and the importance of context. She realized that life often tested people in unexpected ways, and that how she handled each challenge would define who she became. Writing her reflections helped her process the events fully, turning anxiety into insight and fear into understanding. Later, she spoke with her friends on the phone, discussing the lessons they had all learned. They shared thoughts on responsibility, communication, and the importance of staying calm under pressure. The conversation was supportive and insightful, reinforcing her understanding and giving her a sense of community. They all realized that the incident had been a learning experience for everyone, not just her. The next day at school, she noticed subtle changes. Students and teachers alike treated her with a quiet respect, acknowledging how she had handled the situation. Conversations often included reflections on courage and responsibility, demonstrating that the lessons from the courtyard extended beyond the incident itself. She felt proud, not because of attention, but because she understood the significance of what she had learned. At home, her father spoke with her again about the importance of reflection and personal growth. "Remember," he said, "life is not only about what happens to us, but how we respond. Every challenge is an opportunity to learn and to grow stronger. You showed maturity yesterday that many adults struggle to achieve." She listened intently, realizing the truth in his words. Over the following weeks, the incident became a quiet topic among students and staff, not as gossip but as a lesson in human behavior, authority, and communication. The girl's classmates often referenced how she had remained composed, using her experience to guide discussions about handling pressure, fairness, and empathy. The event became a subtle but meaningful reminder that every action, reaction, and word mattered. At home, the girl continued to reflect on the importance of honesty, patience, and composure. She understood that fear was natural, but courage meant acting responsibly despite it. She recognized that her father's calm guidance had been a crucial part of the resolution, and that observing and learning from others was an important skill in life. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, her father spoke again. "You've learned something valuable. Not everyone will have someone to guide them in tense situations, so the lessons you take from this experience will help you navigate challenges on your own. Remember to stay calm, be honest, and think clearly. These skills will serve you well in any circumstance." The girl nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding and readiness for the future. As the days turned into weeks, the girl carried these lessons with her in everyday life. She approached school, friends, and responsibilities with a new awareness. She understood that misunderstandings could happen, but with patience, honesty, and careful communication, they could be resolved without conflict. She also recognized the importance of observing context and responding thoughtfully, rather than reacting impulsively. The officer, too, seemed to have learned from the experience. Though they no longer interacted, the story circulated quietly among staff, and his actions during the incident were later discussed in professional circles as an example of how awareness and discretion could prevent unnecessary escalation. Both the girl and the officer had gained insights from the event, though in different ways. Looking back on the entire incident, the girl realized how much it had shaped her. It had been a day of fear, tension, and uncertainty, but it had ended with understanding, reflection, and growth. She had faced an unexpected challenge, learned important lessons about herself and others, and come through stronger and wiser. As she prepared for bed each night, she often reflected quietly on the lessons learned: courage under pressure, patience in the face of tension, honesty in communication, and awareness of context in every situation. These reflections became a part of her daily thinking, guiding her decisions, interactions, and understanding of the world. Ultimately, the story of that day remained with her not as a memory of fear, but as a powerful reminder of personal growth, responsibility, and the importance of composure. It was a lesson she would carry for the rest of her life, shaping the way she approached challenges, interacted with others, and understood the subtle complexities of human behavior. And so, the ordinary afternoon that had begun with fear and tension ended as a lasting story of courage, wisdom, and the quiet power of understanding and calm. The girl had faced a challenge, learned from it, and emerged stronger, leaving behind a legacy of insight that would continue to influence her actions and those around her for years to come.